You're watching CN2 News. Two Chester County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's R.E.A.L.L. Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, R.E.A.L.L. Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us, and welcome back, Tammy.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And thank you, Principal Klingman, for filling in last week. I appreciate you being there with Sheka. Appreciate all of you.
Yes, and we're also welcoming back Principal Hurt this week as well. It was good to see him on, and thank you, Principal Hurt, for all of your wisdom this morning. That was definitely a great session. Thank you.
Definitely. So much powerful information about differentiation. Thank you.
Good morning, Cynthia and Cindy. Just going to run through our list. Arcella. Good morning, Principal Kafele. Looking forward to your broadcast next.
Yes. And congratulations on being
global.
A global guru, influential thought leader again. So well deserved.
Definitely. Congratulations. Good morning, Josh. Hope you're getting your steps in. And good morning again, Principal Hurt. And thank you all for joining us. If you would just share the feed on your page. We are happy to be with you this morning. And this morning, we're talking about forming a support system in education. Last week, when Principal Klingman joined me while Tammy was out with her family, trying to help everyone get better, we talked about her article that was printed in the NWEA blog around a Black sisterhood for principals. Tell them the title, actual title of the article, Tammy.
The actual title of the article is To My Black Principal Sisters, How to Build a Genuine Sisterhood.
Yes, and it's a phenomenal article. And as I said last week, I'm not just saying that because Tammy's my partner, but it really is a great article. And so today, when we're talking about forming a support system in education, I want to talk about first, what is a system? And it's defined as a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network. And some time ago, when I was in my 20s, I worked in manufacturing at Mack Truck. So one thing that manufacturing definitely has in place is a great system. And what they had was an assembly line of work that you had to do in order to be able to get everything assembled. So I was responsible for putting on the door handles. So there was a set amount of screws that went with that. There was a certain way you had to do everything in specific parts that had to go onto that. So everyone had a specific job that ran through that entire line. And at the end of that entire system, what you would get was a finished product, which would be a truck. And Tammy, you also had a system in your former life as well.
Yes, definitely. And thank you so much for the comment on the blog. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I think that I love that you wanted to share that system analogy because it's a part of every aspect of everything that we do. Like you're talking about systems and manufacturing and how important that was. And I just thought it would be appropriate for us to make sure that we mention that there are systems in whatever aspect or career you're working in. Because when I worked in corporate banking, there were systems in place that were there to ensure that at the end of the night, each one of those clients or whichever shift you were on, when you finished that night, that you had successful deposits for those clients. And you're talking about a lot of high dollar clients with a lot of money going through that accounting process. And what I love about that level of system is it started, of course, with the processors. It's those people who are doing the grind and they're in there processing the checks and getting the work done. After that, you send that in to a checker because somebody's supposed to check behind you and make sure that that deposit is accurate. But it doesn't stop there because you again are dealing with a lot of money. You're going to send that on to the proof department and so on and so forth. Because again, at the end of the night, you want to be sure that you have accurately processed these accounts and credited these people the money that is being paid to them. So I love that whole system concept because the ultimate goal of having a well-established system is always going to go back to efficiency.
Definitely. And my mom, she retired from Mack Truck. So she got me that job for the summer. But because I made $50,000 a year in my 20s, it was hard to say, oh, I'm just going to go back to making nothing. So I stayed there for a while, but I was probably the worst worker they had. And the idea is that when you take someone away, you can easily stick someone in that system and it still goes and it's still efficient, like Tammy talked about. But the guy who was responsible for fixing all of the mistakes at the end of that process would find me wherever I was working and say, what are you doing today? Because it's better for me to just help you now than just fix everything later. So the idea is for it to be efficient, but sometimes, you might have somebody who is not working out that way for. But one thing that that's one of the reasons why Tammy and I looked at our framework, because one thing about the principalship, there are a lot of things, there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of times there's really not anyone to tell you how to put those parts together, how to make it work. So the one thing that we did with our system was try to define that for principals, because we knew for us how difficult that was. And actually having that system in place makes it to where everything can run even if you're there or not. And that's one of the things that I've been blessed to experience as I go back now that I'm working in the MTSS position. When I go back to my school and I see my former teachers, they say things like, oh, Dr. Houston, it's like you never left. We're still doing the 1.5 years of growth. We know how to, help the children grow. We know what to do. So that culture was built and those systems were put in place, even though I'm not there. Now they are still helping children to grow. And that's ultimately what I wanted to happen. But with our framework that we developed, Create and Educate's 5 super strengths for resilient schools, we start with that door with respect. We have a system for social and emotional learning and building relationships, not just with the students, but also your staff members and your parents. You have to have systems in place to make sure that that's your foundation. The next one is excellence in our R.E.A.L.L acronym, which is our system for academic success. If you don't have a system in place for academic success, you really don't have defined goals for everyone to reach. The ACE is accountability. We have a system in place for accountability. A lot of times people have things and systems in place, but then they're not checking on the work. There's no accountability. You have to have that piece in place for it to really work and for people to follow through. Literacy, we know how important literacy is and how that's the key really to a lot of the problems we have with equity, making sure that literacy piece is there. And so we have a system in place to make sure that reading achievement actually increases in schools through our literacy framework. And then leadership, where we have a system for effective and efficient leadership. Because again, a lot of times principals are given the keys and thrown in a building with problems that were there long before they ever got there, but you're expected to fix them. You're expected to make sure things don't go wrong, and you're expected to do a lot of things that you may not have learned in school. So that's the whole thing what our framework is about.
And we really
And Tammy is going to talk about, go ahead, Tammy.
No, go on, Sheka, because you were kind of freezing. I thought it was going to freeze. Go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say is from your article, you're just going to explain how what you talked about with Africana womanism and how that really has great key components in it that Dr. Hudson Weems, you referenced her work and her framework in there too, about how to really take that and build true support systems. And where the one thing that I love about it before you start talking about it is that it doesn't separate men and women. It actually brings us together to be able to do the things that are necessary. And we definitely need to be able to do that in education, which is why I love our PLN network so much. But go ahead.
Definitely. And I think that is so important to mention. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the things, the article was a sisterhood article because that's what NWEA wanted. But the unique aspect of Africana womanism, and the reason that I think I connect so well with the theoretical concept, is the goal, the ultimate goal always goes back to collectivity and supporting one another, and how men, women, and children are collective in the struggle together. And that is how we're going to move our communities forward, by working together and not in absentia of one another or against one another. And I think that's really important. And that's one of the goals of the article, is to really talk about how that piece of support for one another can really be that thing that can strengthen our schools and our communities. And it could be the game changer in making sure that instead of working against one another, we're working together and collaborating. That's one of the main aspects of what we do, Sheka, and what we promote as a company, because that collaboration piece often gets left out of the conversations when you're talking about systems. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. I saw one of Principal Hurt's comments, and you have to have good, strong systems in place in order to move that academic needle. And that's really what we want to see happening in our schools. But it kind of goes back to what you said before. You get put into a position and you're in that position, but it feels like you should know what it is you're supposed to do, even though this is something that you've never done before. And then you take a person like me who didn't even have the experience of the assistant principalship, where you kind of do learn some things in that trial by fire, but you're there and
Mm-hmm.
you really don't have that support to undergird you to say, here's a manual and this is how you do it, because there isn't one that's going to befit
Right.
every situation that you're going to come up against. So that's the reason that you have to have people who you can rely on and people who you are able to confide in and go to for that level
Mm-hmm.
of support that you're going to need. So that's one of the things that comes out in our blog for this time. And it comes in the form of the conversation from me to my sisters who are fellow Black women principals. But again, the reason that I undergird what I do with Africana womanism from Dr. Clenora Hudson Weems is because it is based on what we do collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you probably feel the same way. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh,
There is no way that we could have done, and we've been there for one another, yes, but none of the work that we've been able to do and the things that we've been able to accomplish could have been accomplished without the support of a network of people that includes men and women who share
mm-hmm.
a like
Exactly.
mind, who believe what we believe and believe that these are the things that we need to do to not just move forward education in general, but to support one another in this
Mm-hmm.
collective effort to keep things changing and not be in this sitting on an island by yourself, but in tandem with one another so that we're able to count on each other, especially when we really need to provide that layer of support.
Exactly. And one of the things, and Tammy, sometimes I get excited. I wanted to read an excerpt from her dissertation that really kind of explains what we're talking about as far as looking at Africana womanism as opposed to feminism, where it kind of is a pitting type of thing. But Africana womanism is more of a collective collaboration, bringing people together thing, which is what we're all about. We have called each other one another's trust mates, which we are completely. We have a great support system in Principal Hurt, who, has believed in us, Principal Kafele, all of you that tune in every week, Dr. Larry, and people like Principal Klingman, who at the drop of a hat, I'm messaging her, hey, can you fill in with me today? Sure. People who just believe in what you're doing and see that you're actually trying to achieve something for a greater good and also want to help along with that. So I love that. That's one of the principles.
Oh yeah, and the thing I know that we're gonna be getting ourselves out of Principal Kafele's way, but if you don't know Dr. Clenora Hudson Weems's work, um, take a look at what she does because she absolutely is phenomenal. This is one of her books, and this one is Africana Womanism: Reclaiming Ourselves. It is as Sheka said, something that you really are going to just completely say the blinders are completely off when you start to look at this. And it, I think, resonates so well with us as Black women because we do know that we're not in competition with our Black men. That's a whole
No.
other set of um, ideals that match a different philosophical standpoint. And that's why I personally was never able connect with feminism, because I'm not against my brothers. I have brothers. I have uncles and I have a husband. So I am a female who supports Black men. And because of that, it helps when you can connect with what is being said. And as I said, I just want to share this excerpt before we get out of the way for Principal Kafele to come on. This is what Dr. Hudson Weems has to say in this particular book about the genuine sisterhood. An asexual relationship between women, there has always been this bonding that cannot be broken, genuine sisterhood. This sisterly bond is a reciprocal one in which each gives and receives equally. In this community of women, all reach out in support of each other, demonstrating a tremendous sense of responsibility for each other by looking out for one another. They are joined emotionally as they embody empathic understanding of each other's shared experiences. Everything is given out of love, criticism included. And in the end, the sharing of the common and individual experiences and ideals yields rewards. She goes on to say more, but I say that to say, we're not talking about some fanciful, oh, you just have to agree with everything that I think, you have to believe what I believe, and you have to say what I want you to say so that I'm hearing what I want to hear. That's not what a genuine sisterhood is. Sheka can criticize me, she can correct me, and it's done with genuine love, because when she comes to me with correction or rebuke, it is to help me to be better. I have to be the person that I am to be able to receive that. And I think that's how this sometimes gets lost in translation. Instead of receiving it in the spirit that is given, I turn that into something that is personal. I take it personally, and then it turns into this competition. And that's how we get lost.
Right.
So if you haven't read the blog, I encourage you to read it. I hope you enjoy it, because we can be better together. We can be there for each other.
Definitely. Thank you, Tammy, for sharing that. And someone asked, where can the system be found? I'm going to put our website in the comments. Everything that we talked about with our R.E.A.L.L system, it's all on our website. And if you want to get in touch with us about any types of trainings that we offer, just fill out the contact form. And also we're going to continue this, because we know we have to also talk more about how you form these true support systems in education. So we'll be continuing this next Saturday at 10:30. Thank you all for joining us. We just wanted to make sure you had that good foundation into where we were coming from with the information. So hop on with us with Principal Kafele. We're going to share his feed next, and we'll see you all next Saturday. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.